Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. I do have one quick favor before we get to the video that you came here for, and that is very simply this. You see that little red subscribe button below this video? Go ahead, smash that subscribe button. It really does help me. It really does help this channel grow and my audience grow. So go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And now, here is the video that you came here for. All right, so over the last week or so on this channel, I've tried to keep you updated on the Indiana basketball coaching search. And look, it's with good reason. Say what you want about Indiana. I know they've struggled of late, but this is still, in my mind, an elite program across college basketball. I know some of you would disagree. What I would say is this. I know they haven't been relevant really on the national championship level scale since the mid-1990s. But what I would also tell you is there's other programs in the history of college basketball that I was told, oh, they stink. They'll never be good again. And all it took was the right coach to get that program fixed and get them moving in the right direction. I wouldn't say it was as extreme, but never forget, before Kentucky hired John Calipari, they had gone 11 straight years without making a Final Four. 1998, he's hired in 2009. 2 years later, by year two, Kentucky is in the Final Four. By year three, they win a national championship. There are others. I mean, Michigan, people forget, before John Beilein got to Michigan went about 6-7 years without making the NCAA tournament. Obviously, he elevated them. Juwan Howard has maybe even elevated them further. And so this idea that Indiana will never win again, I don't believe it. And because of it, I want to keep you updated because we did get some news over the course of this weekend about this job and where things stand. And I just want to keep you updated. And what I would tell you is over the course of the weekend, I think one name absolutely had to have emerged on Indiana's big board in terms of a guy that they should call. And then I also think two other names emerged that I think they would be insane to call and just might, and I'll tell you why they shouldn't do it. But let's kind of go back to the beginning, because from the beginning, if you've listened to these videos, if you listen to my podcast, you know I've said the guy that I would go after is John Beilein. Yeah, you got to call Scott Drew. Yeah, you got to call Chris Beard. But those two guys are embedded in the Big 12. They're embedded in their local communities. They have kids in the schools, all that kind of stuff. And it might be hard to get them away. The one guy that's available that you don't have to pay a buyout to, that you really don't have to ask all that much of, is John Beilein. But for whatever reason, it appears as though John Beilein is not going to happen in Indiana. Either Indiana isn't interested in him, either he's not interested in coming back to coaching. Whatever the case may be, it does not appear as though that's going to happen. And by the way, shame on Indiana. Go get this guy. Multiple Final Fours, one in the Big Ten. I've said it all along. I believe he could take the current Indiana roster that will be in place in 2021-2022 to the NCAA tournament, but it doesn't appear as though that's going to happen. So let's get into first the guy that I think Indiana absolutely has to call, and that is the guy that we all saw front and center on Sunday afternoon against Illinois, and that is Porter Moser from Loyola Chicago. Because if you watch that game, Illinois obviously came in as one of the 2 or 3 favorites in the NCAA tournament. They were steamrolling everybody. They were scoring at will, and they go up against Loyola Chicago, and they were just outclassed in every way. They were outplayed, they were out-executed, they were out-coached. And as I was watching that game, I couldn't help but think to myself, Indiana, guess what? The hard work is done. The NCAA tournament just did your coaching search for you. Go get yourselves Porter Moser. The second that he's eliminated from the NCAA tournament, get on the phone and don't let him say no. The reason why I like Porter Moser is this. He has a defined system, a defined style of play, and the way he plays, he knows who he is and he knows what he wants to do. This is a team that doesn't play fast, but they're very efficient on offense, which we'll get into in a minute. But they hang their hat on defense, and nobody in college basketball plays better defense than Loyola of Chicago, and that is not a metaphor. That is not hyperbole. That is fact. They ranked number 1 in the country in fewest points allowed at 55.8 points per game allowed, a staggering number. They gave up an average of less than 56 points per game, and we saw it on display against Illinois. Listen, you can go back and say, oh, it was the Missouri Valley. Who did they really play? When you play maybe the second most dynamic offense in college basketball behind Gonzaga, a team that, by the way, in their 3 Big Ten tournament games scored 90 points, 82 points, and 91 points against 3 different NCAA tournament teams, and you hold that team to 58 points. I mean, they were averaging about 88 in the Big Ten tournament. You hold them to 58 points, 30 points below that average. You know how to coach up defense. And what strikes me about that specifically is never forget, Indiana was a defense-first program under Bob Knight. So for those people who are actually old enough to remember the Knight era, it will kind of resonate. It will kind of, bring back memories. And this is a program that's built on defense. And I think Porter Moser has the DNA of what would make a coach successful at Indiana. On top of that, some people would say, yeah, but they play slow, they play boring. How is that different from what Archie Miller did? Well, first of all, they are way, way, way more efficient than what Archie Miller did at Indiana. Keep in mind that while they do not score a lot just because of the tempo that they played, check this out. They actually ranked, I mentioned, number 1 in field goal percentage defense, but in field goal percentage offense, you know where they ranked? And this blew my mind when I saw it. They ranked 4th nationally. They were the 2nd highest field goal offense in the NCAA tournament behind only Gonzaga. And so it's not just the elite defense. I think the offense gets underappreciated. And if you saw it against Illinois, I mean, how could you not see it? It was easy shot after uncontested layup, after wide open three. And oh, by the way, for Indiana fans thinking it's going to be Archie Miller 2.0, they shot 37% from three this year, so it is not going to be Archie Miller 2.0. And what I like about this specific Loyola team and where Porter Moser is at in his career is, again, he's 52 years old, so he's young enough to conceivably be there for 15, 18, 20 years. But beyond that, he knows who he is. He knows how he wants to play, and there is nothing fluky about this run. You can go back to 2018 and, Final Four, like whatever, 11 seed. There is nothing fluky about this run, and it has been a slow build to get Loyola of Chicago to where they are right now, which I believe was probably one of the top 10 to 15 teams in the country by the time the season ended. 32-6 the year they made the Final Four. They lose everybody. The following year they go 20-14. 21-11 last year. I don't know if they would have made the NCAA tournament, but second in the Missouri Valley. Potentially could have, of course, gotten in as an at-large. But then this year, 26-4, again, with the number 1 ranked field goal percentage defense in college basketball, number 4 ranked field goal percentage offense, and it just blew my mind. If you watch this game, he was the better coach. His team was prepared better, they executed better, they defended better, they scored more efficiently. It was unbelievable. And like I said, I just thought as I was watching this game, Indiana, your job is done. Go get this guy. You know who I wouldn't get, though? There was talk of, so first of all, to backtrack, yes, go get Porter Moser, call him, offer him whatever. I know he comes from money and he isn't defined by money. It's hard to turn down Indiana if you're a coach, especially his age. You know who I wouldn't go after, though? It's 2 guys whose names emerged over the course of the weekend from an outlet in Louisville. I want to make sure I credit the right reporter. I believe it was Eric Crawford. No, I take that back. Rick Bozich from Louisville has said that 2 new names have emerged in Indiana. And I'll tell you this. Indiana would be insane to hire either of them, and realistically, I think they'd be looking for a new head coach in about 4 more years if they hired either of them, and that is former Ohio State coach Thaadmata. That is former Indiana legend Mike Woodson, and I'm just telling you, ew, gross, no, stay away if you're Indiana. Here's why. Let's start with Thaadmata. I get why people would be interested in him. 2 Final Fours, played in a national championship game. I would guess off the top of my head, outside of John Beilein, he's probably the only coach not coaching right now that has made multiple Final Fours that you can actually get that's of the right age. I'm not talking about Jim Calhoun, who's 75 years old. I'm not talking about Brad Stevens, Billy Donovan, who have jobs in the NBA. Thaadmata and John Beilein are probably the 2 biggest free agents, and I equate Thaadmata, he's kind of like college basketball's Bob Stoops, right? Every time a big job in college football opens up, you got to call Bob Stoops. And every year Bob Stoops says, yeah, I'll listen to you and we'll talk and whatever. And Bob Stoops always ends up coming back to the retired life, to the media life, to doing what he has been doing since he left Oklahoma. And it's kind of the same with Ohio State, or with Thaadmata. Every single year since he's left Ohio State, he gets calls. I know Georgia was interested. Ole Miss was interested. On and on and on and on and on. And every time he says no. And there's a reason why he says no, and that is this. The guy, as best we all understand it, probably just isn't healthy enough to coach college basketball right now. And I don't wish any ill will upon him, and I hope I'm wrong, and I hope he's getting better. But if you do some research on Thaadmata, he has some very severe health issues, even though he's only about 53 years old. For people who do not know, he had a major back surgery back in 2007. My understanding is that it actually went very wrong, and he really still struggles health-wise to do even basic things. He was coaching from a stool, not only in games but in practice. He had trouble traveling for recruiting. I read a story, I don't know if it is still true, I don't want to speculate, I hope I'm wrong, but that he continues to struggle with even basic health tasks like taking off your shoes, tying your shoes, things like that. And I love the guy, and I wish him luck, and I hope I'm wrong, and I hope he's gotten better. But a guy like that, you now take him and put him in the high-pressure job that is Indiana, I think that's a lot to ask of him. And I do think the health issues are real. At least they were at the end of his Ohio State tenure. And it's worth noting because there was a major drop-off when he was at Ohio State. And this is not a knock on him. I understand physically maybe he couldn't do the job. But his last 4 years, he won a grand total of one NCAA tournament game. That was the year he had D'Angelo Russell. And his final 2 years, he missed the NCAA tournament. And so you're now asking that guy at 53 years old, was not healthy enough to compete at Ohio State, to come back into the Big Ten in a tougher time in the league. You now play 20 league games. I would argue across the board, the league is better despite their NCAA tournament struggles. I think you'd be out of your mind to bring in this guy, and I just don't think health-wise he can do it. After him, the other name that came up this weekend was Mike Woodson. And I get it from Indiana's perspective. For people who do not know, Mike Woodson won a national championship at Indiana with the 1981 team, played in the NBA. He's been a former NBA head coach. And I think Indiana administration, maybe the fan, he can be our Juwan Howard. Please, 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 for the love of God, do not compare him to Juwan Howard. Juwan Howard is 48 years old. Yes, he was removed from college for a long time before he got to Michigan. But never forget, he has a son who was going through the recruiting process. He is a freshman on this year's team. And I'm just telling you, I've talked to college coaches that were like, oh yeah, Juwan was in the gym all the time. Juwan understood how recruiting worked, how player evaluation worked, how the one and done worked, how transfers worked. And you ask Mike Woodson at 62 years old with now 40 years away from college basketball, I don't think he's going to walk in and it's going to be a smooth transition. Now, maybe you can out X and O people for a while, which I don't know if he can. But, even if you can, we saw it with Patrick Ewing. Yeah, he got hot for 3 days, but that was still the 8th best team in the Big East. That was still a team that lost by 20-plus points in the NCAA tournament. And I just don't think Mike Woodson at 62 years old, asking him to come in with no head coaching experience, no head coaching experience in college, I should say, and no experience at all in college since the 80s, I think it would be absolutely insane. But like I've said, first of all, I think you should still call John Beilein, but go get Porter Moser. That search was just done for you. The NCAA tournament did all the work for you. Go get him. Go hire him. Bring him in. He is the guy you absolutely have to get if you're Indiana. And that's it. And if you like this video, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to turn on alerts as I'll continue to update you as Indiana figures out who their next head coach is. And, of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Aaron_Torres as well.